Welcome back. We're back. Two fans, one Paul, myself, David Quist, lovely co-host KB Kirk Brown, whom I saw recently in person in the flesh. Week 11 recap, a day late because KB had a travel day. Kind of a crazy weekend, KB. Not a great slate. ACC is ACCing. The Big Ten had some crazy games down the line, in the finish line. Michigan State, it's a winter basketball or winter sports school. We got basketball winning. We got a sweep for hockey. A volleyball won, and then the women's soccer team lost in the Big Ten championship game for in the tournament. So we're kind of at a high right now, and no football to worry about. So I feel pretty good about a team that I root for, and then Grand Valley alumni here. Both of us gave you one as well at homecoming, anchor up. But yeah, good sports weekend overall. Lions got the win. We got to see each other, and then we get to break down some balls. So how we doing? I know you're traveled, so I just want to throw it to you, and then we'll jump right in.
Case of cold congestion. It was really difficult after all the travel yesterday. I really wanted to. I was still planning on it, and then when I got off the plane and I couldn't hear out of either of my ears, I figured, well, it's probably okay if we wait a day. But all things considered, it was a pretty fun sports day. I was able to see my nephews, able to see a lot of friends and family when I was back, so that was always good and fun. But yeah, Chris, you mentioned it best. It felt like the week of sloppy games. The Big Ten, I apologize. The Big Ten played two really close games, and Oregon and then Indiana was much closer than maybe we suspected going into it. And then the ACC tumbled, like you said. Now there are still a handful of teams here. Georgia Tech is 5-1 in conference. Virginia is 5-1 in conference. Pitt is 5-1 in conference, who have a really big game this upcoming weekend against Notre Dame. SMU is 5-1 after getting off to a pretty sloppy start. They had two out-of-conference losses. And then Duke is 4-1, even though they're 5-4 overall, having three non-conference losses.
To UConn.
So, to UConn this weekend. So, I mean, this is going to be interesting to see how the rest of this plays out, but really fun, really looking forward to the rest of the ACC conference play. And, honestly excited to see both our teams coming off a bye. If both of us, I think, want to see a lot of growth, which we'll talk about on the next episode. Obviously, this is just a covering of the last one, but it's always nice to just think about it. We're finally in the week where we get to, be happy or maybe, doubtful or angry about our teams. So, anyway, Quist, if you want to kick us off with game number one, it was actually, I believe, the Friday night game.
Game. Tulane wins 38-32 over Memphis. Makes a group of four even more of a cluster, I think, with that. The American is a cluster. We talked about that a lot. North Texas is in there too. But 38-32. Jake Retzlaff, I think, had himself a game. Let me try to find the box score quick.
He had over 300 passing yards. He had a huge first half. He had a long touchdown run on top of it. He really dominated this first half of this game, and it really allowed them to establish themselves and win a really important game for Tulane. If you remember, Tulane had a pretty big win earlier in the year against no other than the Duke Blue Devils themselves, as we were just talking about them. So this definitely pops a hole in a balloon in the Memphis, G5 win. I see USF is back ranked again after improbable game. If you're able to watch that Thursday night, that game was over instantaneously against UTSA. All things considered, who Tulane lost to the week before. So that's the funness of this conference and everything that's involved in it is kind of because the talent's a little bit more equal, you see some of these wild upsets where teams don't show up. It's a Thursday night game and they get blown out, or a Friday night game and they don't maybe play as well as they wanted to. So yeah, his final line was 16 of 23 for 332. He added 43 yards on the ground for 4 total touchdowns. And then Brendan Lewis, I'm sure he has one throw he wanted back. He had a pick in this game, but he was 29 of 34 for 317. But he had negative 41 rushing yards, which we've seen how much he can be a dual threat. I think that's one of the big things here. He only had that one turnover. He didn't fumble anything, but there was 6 sacks from the Tulane side, which I think really impacted them, because in the second half, Tulane actually got outscored 15-3, but they'd built such a nice, comfortable lead in the first half, they were able to get away with it. Quist, any thoughts on this game? I wasn't able to watch it. Had to watch the previews on it as we had a little get-together. So
marble races.
Watched the kind of playback. Yep, marble races on a Friday night with some friends and family. But watched the playback and was really impressed with the way Retzlaff looked. stepped up in the big moments, and obviously, huge win for Tulane, and it has to be a breaker for Memphis. If they hadn't have lost that game against UAB earlier, I think this is something that they probably could have overcame. Just one loss, but second loss in the season with who they've played, it's just not going to do it.
Yeah, Tulane coming off a big loss, to UTSA, which I was a little surprised, and then USF gets them back. But they have Temple and Charlotte to end the year, so I'm assuming Tulane goes 10-2. Memphis has, let's look. I'm just curious how the AA American settles at ECU and then Navy, and then let's see who USF has, because that's kind of the three in this conference. Doesn't look like any of them play each other, which is
this is going to be tiebreaker highly dependent, because Navy's 7-2 overall, 5-1 at the top of the conference currently. Then USF is next, 7-2, 4-1 overall. Then Tulane is next, 7-2, 4-1 overall. Then North Texas is 8-1, 4-1 in conference. So it's going to be really interesting to see what tiebreakers here, because with how everything's played out across the country, whoever wins this conference championship game is most likely a 1-2 loss team getting in. But it's going to be a weird year for these conference teams, these G5 teams getting in. It was really easy last year, undefeated team. They were actually a top seed, all things considered. So going to be very, very interesting to see how all this plays out. But any of those teams can make it in. And even ECU, they're 4-1 in the conference. They don't have a great overall, but if some of these teams lose or break down, they're 4-1 in conference as well.
And they play and then Army plays, or not Army, sorry, USF and Navy play this coming weekend. So that'll shake out a little bit, but nobody else really plays each other, KB. So it'll be interesting to watch. And we'll have our finger on the pulse, because we think the American's kind of fun to watch and keep an eye on, since they will probably be the Group of 5 team making the playoff. Any other thoughts before we jump to
we both picked Memphis in this game, and we were both wrong. So I didn't know if I mentioned that, because I wanted to make sure that we keep up on that. But yeah, I honestly thought Memphis would put out a better showing, and they just lose a heartbreaker, and they didn't come out firing, all things considered. But we've kind of seen that trend this year, Quist. If you want to take a couple seconds, is that when teams have kind of an embarrassing, disgusting loss, I feel like they've kind of found ways to the next week come back and fight and look prepared.
I would agree with you there. I mean, Tulane just did it. We'll see if Memphis can do it. It just seems like you said, that conference has a lot of equilibrium, I guess, for lack of a better word, because there's not as much high and low when it comes to recruiting and in the portal. I think a lot of guys go to these schools to find a spot to get their feet kind of planted firmly, like the guy at Memphis, Retzlaff coming from BYU, and that kind of spreads the wealth, and all the teams kind of beat up on each other, which isn't great probably for the conference in general, but it's good for college football, and we all like competition. These Thursday, Friday night games can be pretty good and entertaining. It's not the highest level of football, but it's competitive and fun to watch. And like the quarterback for USF, Byron Brown, he's fun to watch. He's an athlete. He can make it. He can sling it around. He can run the ball, and that's a program with a decent coach that could make some noise too.
Absolutely. I was also thinking, like, when Michigan, after they got trounced by USC on the road, they came back and played really well against Washington, and there's kind of those instances that we've kind of seen all year.
Wisconsin beat Washington. Who knows?
Yeah. I was gonna bring that up too. That was kind of another leading point. Like, the leading passer for Wisconsin was their punter.
I saw that. Disgusting.
Because they played a not 5-star, but a 4-star true freshman. Due to all the injuries, because they're on their third-string quarterback entering the game, and third-string quarterback gets injured, so now they're on the fourth-string true freshman, and he started his college career 0 for his first 9, which is never a good look. But they figured out a way to win, right? That's the Big Ten. It's a weird, nasty, sleet game, and you beat a ranked team on that has to travel across the country to do it. But that was a really impactful when Washington. They had a chance to make a not maybe a playoff bid, but a run at competing here down the stretch, and it kind of feels like the wind got let out of their sails there. But anyway, moving on.
Jedfish might hate Seattle. Anyway, next game, Texas Tech dominates BYU in the Pat Mahomes jerseys, 29-7. The Texas Tech defense really showed up here. I was watching highlights, and BYU could move the ball, but when it mattered, they got shut down. Bayer Bachmeier, 23 for 38, 188, touchdown and a pick. He had 11 carries for 12 yards, so probably some sacks in there as well. BYU's run total, 27 carries, 67 yards, along as 12. They could not do shit against this Texas Tech defense. Texas Tech ran well with Cameron Dickey, 23 for 121, Jacoby Williams, 13 for 77, and then Baron Morton, 17 for 32, 219, and a tutty. Nothing crazy, but got the job done. And Texas Tech defense really, really stood tall, KB. That was the difference in Lubbock. No tortillas were thrown, I think, but a big game that was on ABC that I still can't watch because people can't get their shit together. But love this win. Texas Tech has that oil money. It's a team that I last year I got it right with SMU. I said Illinois. I said Texas Tech. I'm forgetting the other team I said this year, KB. Might have to go back and watch it. Were my sleeper teams, and Texas Tech is 9-1 going down the stretch here. Love to see it.
Yeah, I mean, Texas Tech, they obviously invested a lot in the offseason. They invested in those trenches, and I think that was the difference. Like, if you go up to BYU's coach, and I can't think of his name right now, but if you tell him, hey, your true freshman is going to go on a huge road start at Texas Tech, what are we going to do? And if you had to tell them, yeah, we're going to throw the ball 38 times, do you think that was like in their game plan? They weren't able to establish the run, and that leads to problems. And the second leading ball carrier in this game and second leading rusher on their team was Bear Brockmeyer with 11 carries. So that's one of those instances where he's obviously been pressured a lot. They couldn't establish the run, and Texas Tech was able to kind of inch out to the lead. And what happens in these games, often is that when you can't do anything on offense, and this would happen a lot in Michigan games of previous years. I mean, if you look at last year, people are like, man, how did they lose to, an Illinois team? And how did they lose to, Indiana when they held them, and they got blown out by Oregon, and they got blown out by Texas? When your offense can't do anything and your defense is constantly playing against short fields, the offense is, the opposing team is always on the field, your defense gets tired, and then these games kind of tend to get away from you in the second half. I mean, it's 13-0. It's a two-score game at halftime. It's not like it was, a train wreck. It wasn't Ohio State versus Oregon at the Rose Bowl last year where it was over in a quarter. It was a full half of game, and then eventually the willingness and ability to kind of handle and control the trenches for Texas Tech won this game. It's going to be interesting to see what the committee does tomorrow on this. Obviously, with the Tuesday recording, we'll be able to talk about all the rankings and the changes come Thursday. But BYU finishes the season with TCU, Cincinnati, and UCF, all pretty winnable games. Are they able to still get in with this loss? How does this look for Texas Tech, who only has 2 games left against UCF and West Virginia? Can they hang on, finish their season strong, keep everything going for them? Because these last 2 weeks, right, these are the weeks where people lose their mind and stop being able to play football games for some reason. We've seen it year after year of teams blowing opportunities to go to playoffs because they just forget what a football is. They get too excited. They start looking forward. And so I hope that doesn't happen with Tech, because it's a really cool story. What investing in this sport, and obviously this isn't a long-standing thing because we saw ASU do this last year, right? It's about, can they then sustain it next year? Can they rematch this? Because like we saw with ASU, injuries can ravage a season. If you don't have that depth, if you don't have everything in there, it can just completely derail your season. So really happy for this. I picked Tech to blow them out. I was like too much working against them going away, and I was right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I ran with Texas Tech as it's one of my sleeper teams for the year. But yeah, they beat Houston. Houston had a close game with UCF, but they're kind of hanging around too, even though Texas Tech beat them. Oh, KB's gone. Hopefully he comes back. We're going to keep it live. I'm going to keep talking. Houston had a squeaker with... Let me look here. Had a squeaker with... Oh, where'd he go? Houston had a squeaker with... He's back. With UCF 30-27, and they have TCU and Baylor on them, and they are 8-2 with a 1 loss, 2 losses now because they lost to West Virginia. I'm talking about Houston, KB.
Yep.
Never know. They could go 10-2, maybe squeak into. The Big 12, like we've been saying, is, I would say, more consistent and more fun overall than the ACC. The ACC is just complete, utter chaos. But you never know. We'll see how this plays out. But love seeing Texas Tech. Obviously they got that oil money. They put a shit ton of money into this team, and it's obviously paying off.
Yeah, sorry, I was here the entire time, Quist. Just I'm not going to blow my nose on screen. Sorry, I forgot to mention
totally
that. I just
turned
my camera off real quick. I apologize, and I was like, I can't hold on. I can barely
that's how
even
I
keep talking. So, I apologize. So, yeah, that was a fun game. What's the next game we want to talk about here, Quist?
Looks like we got Texas A&M, Mizzou, KB, and A&M is just a good team. They're 9-0. They won 38-17. I feel a little bit bad for Zollers, however you say his name, from Mizzou, freshman quarterback. Did his best here, but A&M is just good. They went up 24-7, and it was kind of the game from there, and they dominated. Miller Moss. What am I saying? Not Miller Moss. That's not his name. Marcel Reed. What am I doing? Way off. Wrong team. He had a good game, 20 for 29, 221, 2 touchdowns. Reuben Owens ran the ball well as well for them, along with a couple other guys, as A&M ran for 243. Mizzou also ran the ball well. Shout out to Jamal Roberts and Ahmad Hardy. They combined for over 200 yards. Both had one big, a longer-ish run. But Matt Zollers, 7 for 22, 77 yards, just won't get it done. Probably hurting not having Perbula back there. Got to give him a little respect, being a freshman out there against a very talented A&M team, but just not enough, even though Mizzou could run the ball, and A&M's defense was flying around, making plays once again. Casey Concepcion got another touchdown for A&M, and this is a fun team, KB. Sometimes I hate A&M because they kind of fall off towards the end of the year, but it looks like Elko has the guys going. Their last 3 games are South Carolina, Samford, and then at Texas will be a big one to end the year in 3 weeks. But A&M's just rolling, KB. And like you said, though, these teams start losing in November, so we'll see. I think South Carolina is winnable, but it could be a sneaky game. And obviously Samford's a gimme game. That Texas game could be huge. For just a bit for SEC implications. I think they still make the playoff, but you never know what can happen.
Yeah, I mean, very well said, Quist. And I think this is something I've been seeing a lot on Twitter. Well, who has A&M played and blah, 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 blah. And then, people who look at the analytical side, oh, well, the analytical teams they play are really good. And then other people are like, yeah, but they played, Missouri with their third-string quarterback. That isn't the same team. They played some things, and I just think that's taking a very stupid and reductionist view. They've dominated and they've been really balanced in a lot of these football games. I think if I have any concern, it's the rushing defense. In this game, Missouri had 2 running backs that went over for 100 each for them. So maybe if a starting quarterback was in there. So maybe some concern for the defensive line. But they're really good pass rushers, but stopping the run has been a bit of an issue recently. But yeah, they're a really, really good football team. They're locked to get 10 wins, as long as they don't blow an FCS game, which they've never done at Texas A&M. So, and then obviously a tough battle against SC, South Carolina, which I feel like they've played a lot of close games, this year, and they just haven't quite worked out for them. They've had some injuries, and their O-line hasn't protected, which is obviously going to be huge against this really great A&M team. And then obviously the last week of the season against Texas. And it'd be awesome if A&M has the opportunity and nails it to knock Texas out of a college football playoff opportunity here, serving them up their 3rd loss. I'd really appreciate that. I know Jeff would really appreciate that too. So that's what I'm wishing for heading into the last week of the season. But no, overall, this is a really good team, balanced. They had both over 200 rushing, 200 yards passing, and they're just a fundamentally sound team. But like I said, if there's anything to critique, it's just sometimes I get a little concerned with how this defense on a down-to-down and especially in the run game can perform. But that's like in the context of college football winning team, not Nebraska, who has issues stopping the run and they're losing games because of it. Texas A&M is winning games in spite of it, and if you're winning games in spite of it, then it's an issue and you're overcoming it by what we've all talked about, which is terrific 3rd down defense, getting Zollers, obviously a true freshman, in this situation. And what did they do? They were 5 of 13 on 3rd down, just continuing to hammer 3rd downs, getting teams off the field. It's one of the best ways to get it. They were also forced Missouri 0-1 on 4th down, so they got them off the field. There weren't any extended, super long possessions. There's only 17 first downs from them in this game. So really impressive performance by A&M as they continue to roll. I really hope that this can finally push out Missouri outside of the top 25, although I think that they'll probably be back in it after Mississippi State and then maybe fall back out of line after they lose to possibly Oklahoma. But just with how their quarterback has been injured and what we take into account now in college football and what the committee has routinely said, this isn't the same team that started the season with Perbula, who could do a lot. and even that team struggled at time, and they already had 2 losses. So like it's probably time to just keep them out of the top 25 unless they have a really crazy upset win, which is unfortunate. But this is just where Missouri's at so far this year.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And they have some winnable games at the end of the year for Mizzou, Mississippi State, like you said. Oklahoma, probably a loss, and then at Arkansas, who has fight. I do think the SEC is pretty deep, all things considered. But, it shakes out the way it shakes out. I do think the committee has a little bit of leniency towards the SEC because obviously that's an ESPN kind of contract with the playoff and everything. But you got to respect SEC for its depth, KB. A lot of athletes and a lot of players, and this Mizzou team could compete in pretty much every other conference. So it makes sense, and you got a quarterback that's got not a lot of experience that needs to take a big step. So sucks that Prabula got hurt, but good effort. They ran the ball well. Quarterback didn't have it, and A&M was just too dominant for obviously another win.
Oh, and we got to remember, right, because Prabula was in a QB competition, and the other dude also got injured early on. I believe it was the original guy that started. So this is actually their 3rd string, right, which is probably makes sense. It's a true freshman. So this is a third string QB, which is really unfortunate for Missouri, who's looking to build off 2 back-to-back really good seasons, even though they weren't in the playoff.
For sure. A fun team to root for. Very Big Ten-ish to me, KB. Not too far from the great Big Ten Midwest area. KB's going to blow his nose again. But the next game is Oregon at Iowa, where dreams go to die. It was a messy game in Iowa City. Rainy, disgusting. Oregon hits a last-second field goal to get the win, 18-16. I'm going to read some stats, KB, because this game was absolutely disgusting. Dante Moore, 13 for 21, 112 and a pick. Mark Gronowski, 10 for 18, 138 and a tutty. Not terrible. Both teams ran the ball okay. Oregon really leaned on it, 36 as a team for 261 and 1 touchdown. Whittingham had 118. Kamari Milton, 23 carries for 87 yards for Iowa. He did okay. Gronowski had a rushing touchdown as well. Now, but the defenses probably had a little bit of advantage here, KB. It was rainy. It was gross. But Oregon finds a way to win. And, you wanted that Iowa team to get this. They did cover. This is a game where Iowa has won in the past, where it's disgusting. It's late in the year. It's in Iowa City. But Oregon just enough to go back out west with a win, sitting 8-1 and 5-1 in the Big Ten. Good fight from Iowa, though.
Yeah, I mean, if you would have told me Iowa gets outrushed by over 100 yards, Iowa loses the turnover battle, I would have been like, oh, this wasn't the typical weird night Iowa game where Iowa wins the turnover battle by 3 and they break off like 2 70-yarders, and that's why they're in it. And it was like, no, all of those things went against Iowa, and they still played really, really, really well and were in contention to win this game. Really surprising. I think, after Dante Moore got off to the start he did, I think we were all kind of leaning on the Dante Moore bandwagon. He's looking really efficient, really pretty. If we look at his last 4 games, we're also including Rutgers in there. He had a 186-yard, a touchdown, 2 picks against Indiana. He had a huge game against Rutgers, 15 for 20, 290, 4 TDs, a pick in that game. He was 9 of 15 for 86 yards, obviously left injured against Wisconsin, and then 13 of 21, 112, which a lot of that, I believe he was like 5 of 6 or 4 of 5 on that final drive in the game for like half of his yards. I think he had like 60 yards passing heading into that last drive, and he also had a pick and no touchdown passes. So the breaks that kind of come out, the jig is up. I thought Iowa did a good job. They didn't get any sacks in this game, but they were definitely able to move him off the spot. And then obviously the conditions played into it. And obviously when you're running as well as you are, when you have 36 carries for over 260 yards, right? I was able to shorten this game a lot, and that led to not many possessions, not many plays. But Oregon came out right, and in the moment, I think we all sit here and we think about the season as a whole. We're like, oh my God, sit here and we think about this last game. Oh my God, they looked horrible. But at the end of the day, it's a win, and that's the most important thing, right? You're not going to have your best stuff every week, and Oregon was able to overcome that. So, like in the first half, or in the first quarter, it was an Iowa punt, Oregon punt. Oregon safetied them, which ended up being the determiner in the game. Obviously, it was a game-winning field goal, but 2 points, and they won by 2. Interception, punt, touchdown, Iowa touchdown, punt, field goal. So they put up 12 points in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 possessions, right? This was a 10, 11 possession game. So you got to think about some of these games with the clock changes. These are shorter games, and that can sometimes lead to some wonkiness when these games kind of are rainy and nasty. But I thought this was exactly the game we were going to get. I said, I don't know if they're going to win, but I'm kind of feeling like a last-second field goal. I was like, maybe Iowa kicks it or misses it. I was like, there's going to be an opportunity, and it played out exactly right this week. This was one of the predictions where just gut-wise, I was like, I think they did this to Indiana, and I feel like Indiana and Oregon kind of play similar styles of high RPO, high-octane passing attacks when they're rolling, but when they get teams that are like this, they can sometimes fall flat, that are so fundamentally sound, that are never in the wrong gap. And I was able to do it, and if they had a better all things attack running game, passing game, offensive game, this was an opportunity. If they don't turn the ball over twice, if they don't get safetied, I mean, it's not like they played a perfect game, and that maybe gives me a little concern on what Oregon is at this point in the season, because this was coming off of a bye, and they still looked this sloppy. I know the conditions weren't great, but I've seen teams play in bad conditions and blow people out. So, but yeah, I mean, a win's a win, and at the end of the month, when we're talking about who should be in the college football playoff, is anyone going to be like, well, they played Iowa really close? Like, no one's going to remember. So how much will that matter?
We'll find out a lot about this Oregon team, KB. They play USC and at Washington. So, like, I think those are two tough games. I know Washington's had a bad loss, but it's still a pretty good team with athletic quarterback, good running back, and a good receiver. And we've seen USC; they've been a little up and down, but Maeva and the receivers and that run game, the defense is a little bit questionable. The West Coast teams in the Big Ten are all going to start playing each other here on the last couple weeks of the season, and it will definitely make things equal out.
You got to think about Iowa, or they just traveled to Iowa. They're now on a short week and play Friday night, where Minnesota's coming off of a bye.
They play Minnesota too, yeah.
Yeah, so look, Minnesota isn't a great football team. I mean, Spartans should have won that game probably 5 times over, but they're going to have another basically Big Ten West test. In the last 2 weeks against Wisconsin and Iowa, or 2 of the last 3 weeks against Wisconsin and Iowa, they have not looked clean in those tests of games that kind of just get muddied up, that are slow, methodical, that you got to avoid turnovers. They haven't looked great in those games, all things considered. So is the weather going to be bad? How does that impact them? And can Minnesota maybe get another close game? The line's 24.5, so the books are saying no. Remember, this line was close. It was 6.5. So I'm not saying that will happen, but there's some things where Minnesota's coming off a bye, weird Friday night game. Does Oregon kind of sleepwalk through this game and not get up? Looking forward to having to play USC, and then obviously, like you said, Quist, the end of the season against Washington, which is a really, really tough game.
It's a fun game, big rival game out there. They hate each other. I love it, KB. The Big Ten's going to really be crazy towards the end, obviously with the game as well. We will keep our eye on it. My team's dead and gone, so we'll see how much fight we have this week. 3:30 kick, Penn State. We'll break it down later this week. But let's fly around the country because it was a crazy, wonky week. We got to talk about at least 3 other games. First and foremost, Omar Cooper. What a catch to win. Penn State's got some fight in them. Indiana has never won in Beaver Stadium, I believe, is what they asked Signetti. They make it happen. Mendoza makes a high throw, towards the end of the game. Cooper just gets that toe in, and Indiana with a big win. I know Penn State's down, but it's never easy to go on the road. And these are, remember, 18 to 22-year-old kids that it's up and down, but Signetti finds a way, and Indiana's 10-0, with the last 2 games being Wisconsin and then at Purdue. So, 2 winnable games, easily could be 12-0 going into the Big Ten Championship, but a great game and a big win for a team that never has won at Penn State.
And actually, some people took problem with the way Signetti responded to it, which I thought was really unique. And he said, well, this team's never played here before.
That's right.
And I think that's a really good insight onto how good coaches motivate their guys. Like, he might not have even spoke about the fact that previous teams didn't win there, because that isn't this team. That isn't the team this year. Indiana hasn't had back-to-back, 10-win seasons ever. Is that, something you throw out there going into the season? Like, hey, we've never done this before. No, you just go out and handle your business. But, yeah, like you said, Quist, that was a back-and-forth game. Penn State played Ohio State the week earlier, pretty close for a half. It was a close one-score game heading out of the half, and then Ohio State turned it on. I thought we were going to see the same thing here, but instead we saw the fight, the vigor, the control by Penn State to flip. They got a huge interception that really flipped the momentum in this game. Fernando Mendoza did not play well. Which I know people are talking about the Heisman, and that was his Heisman moment. I mean, most people would prefer to have their Heisman moment like after they've played well, but that was still really great resilience to come back and win in this game, to have a game-winning drive and solidify it. And it just has to be, maybe the worst all-time season for Penn State fan. I believe they've lost now 6 games. I believe they're 3-6, and I believe 5 of their losses are by like a combined 12 points or something like that. Like, it's been absolutely heartbreaking what this team has gone through. Double overtime loss, obviously, and then going against UCLA, your QB's out injured following that. Like, it's been a steamroll of shitty things. And is this because they don't have a logo at midfield? Possibly.
Rage
but
bait.
It does suck, all things considered. That this season has just unfolded this way, because I was amongst those who thought that this was going to be the year that James Franklin can turn around, and it's just been the exact opposite. Everything that could have gone wrong this year has gone wrong, and maybe in a worse way than you would have ever thought possible for a team who recruits as well as it does, that schedules as poorly in the non-conference as this team does. Like, it sucks, man.
6 to Oregon. That's 5 by UCLA. That's 1 by Northwestern. Go Cats. 1 by Iowa. Obviously, Ohio State beat them by 2-3 possessions, and then 3. So 3 plus 1 plus 1. Hardly any points they've lost by, and your quarterback's gone, your coach is gone. Guys still got fight, but you just don't got the piss and vinegar this year like you usually do. And when you play Nevada, FIU, and Villanova. Maybe that's just the way the cookie crumbles.
They still don't have a win against the Power 5. Someone's going to have to get one next week.
Nope, we beat BC. No Big Ten. 3-6. 3-6 on CBS at 3:30, baby. Of the 0-6 Big Ten teams, you love to see it, KB.
You and then Purdue as well, right? You guys are the 3 because Wisconsin pulled out a win.
So,
absolutely fantastic work. But, yeah, I mean, there's also other upsets. That was a fantastic game. Can't believe Indiana. And that's another one, right? No one's going to care at the end of November, but how impactful is that right now, and how people talk about Indiana after they kind of lay an egg. Remember, because they also didn't play great at Iowa, still was able to pull out a win, which I think is more impressive this year after they've been tested a little bit. Mm-hmm. But then we have to talk about Louisville. Cal beats Louisville. Jaron Swagapule, he's really good. Really looking forward to see how he develops. I hope he stays at Cal. I hope Cal figures out. I know they've been a team kind of in the red athletically for money funding wise, so I hope that they get that figured out and they can compensate him accurately, and maybe he discounts, stays home. But he's a really, really tremendous player. And by home, I know he's from Hawaii. I just meant stay at his current university and not chase money elsewhere. But it's fun watching him play. And Louisville, this is, kind of the situation. I think that all eyes were forward. Jeff Brom, is he possibly looking at going somewhere else?
Really?
He just had...
That'd be surprising.
Possibly. I know it's his alma mater, and I know he took, a pay cut to leave Purdue, but Louisville isn't obviously one of those premier jobs.
I don't think that's a bad school to be at, personally.
True, but it depends what you want, right? Some coaches... most coaches are egomaniacs, right? They want the best job. They don't want to be told no on anything. Is Louisville that job, or is basketball sometimes going to take the charm away? Is it really the pinnacle of college football to coach at Louisville? Like, no offense. I appreciate and I root for Louisville, and they've done a lot, but it's just like, if you have an opportunity, maybe Penn State comes calling, like, you have ties to the Big Ten, you have ties to the area, right? Like, is that a possibility where they want to kind of be like, hey, our offense has sucked for like 5 years, even when we recruited well. We have a high-end recruit in Grunkenmeyer. Maybe he wants to mold him. Who knows? I'm just saying, I've heard some rumors floating out there, but I know he wants to stay at his alma mater. But I'm just saying, he couldn't get it done, and this is a devastating blow to, again, the ACC that no team wants to win. No team wants to step up and take over this conference. Obviously, with the way some of these teams have kind of, handled their seasons. It's just one of those years in the ACC, similar to last year. And believe it or not, I believe last time I looked, it was SMU sitting atop or near the top with an opportunity to ride in. Yeah, if we're looking here, it's Georgia Tech, UVA, Pitt, SMU, Duke. So
all have one loss in conference. It's crazy. Yeah, I like this Louisville team in the program. Miller Moss is not a bad quarterback. He didn't have a great game. Is it? I don't know if it's K1 or K1 Brown. He's good. He's a sophomore, KB. If you're Brom, you better stay. But if you go somewhere, you better bring him along. 14 carries, 136. Only a true sophomore, I think. He's really good. And Cal, I think Cal's defense really stepped up here as the game went on. I watched a lot of highlights of this one. I don't know how to say the guy's last name, but he throws a good ball. He's a lefty. He's athletic. I think he's a freshman, and he's fun to watch. I hope he stays at Cal. Cal, obviously, along with Stanford, got fucked by the Pac-12. But I love watching these teams, be successful and do all that travel because it can't be easy, and they're 6-4. So, good for Cal. But as the ACC goes, KB, as you said, we also have Wake Forest beating Virginia at Virginia 16-9. Disgusting game. Let me look at the box score here. Chandler Morris must have got hurt for Virginia because the other quarterback, Daniel Kalen, was playing. He threw the ball at 28 times. Robbie Ashford is still hanging around college football, KB. He's like on his fifth team. He's QB1 for Wake Forest. He was 7 for 16 for 46 yards. He ran for 57. And I think this is a defensive game. Fun fact for all the Spartans out there listening, Scotty Hazelton is a D coordinator at Wake Forest, who was formerly part of Mel Tucker's coaching regime.
Okay, so Wake Forest has one of the best defenses in the country this year, just all things considered. Wake Forest can't play offense, so
he's a decent D coordinator? Wouldn't know.
This must be an MSU thing. You guys are just cursed at whoever you hire, but no, yeah. I was looking at a graphic. I see a lot of Twitter stuff, and it's usually like a defensive efficiency, and they're like as high as like Ohio State in defensive efficiency stats, but their offense is like in the
Robbie Ashford can't throw the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those years. So is Wake Forest possibly moving in the right direction if your defense can play like this? And I believe it's year one of their new coach that they fired. I believe they fired the weird slow mesh guy that always ran the weird
Sam Hartman.
Yeah.
I'm not too sure.
Exactly. Yeah. Ashford is thrown for a whopping 1,300 yards, less than 60% completion percentage, with a 3 TD to 5 INT ratio. He's also ran 4 touchdowns in, though, so he's a net positive total TD ratio. But yeah, I mean, Wake Forest with a huge upset to UVA. I think we all kind of not saw this coming, but UVA escaped Washington State by 2 points. They escaped Louisville in overtime by 3 points. They beat Florida State in double overtime. They beat North Carolina by 1 in overtime. And they beat Cal by 10 the week before. So I think all directions were pointing. You can only play so many poor games and show up poorly before that's the team you are, and they haven't really blown out some of the lower-end teams and who they've played. They still have an opportunity, all things considered, with the way that the end of their season is going to go because of the weird NC State not being a conference game. But they have Duke and Virginia Tech to end it. So hopefully we'll get some clarity on how the ACC is going to play out as well, because this conference just keeps getting weirder and weirder the longer we talk about it.
Absolutely, KB. Any other games around the country that caught your eye? If not, that's okay, but I want to throw it to you one more time just in case.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the USF game, that was one of those weird ones. It was over before it started on Thursday night. It was a pick six, a fumble return for a touchdown. It was 14-0 before Byron Brown even took a snap. His first possession with it, he scores a touchdown. I mean, it was 28-0. The defense had 2 scores. The offense had 2 scores. It was a really weird start to the game. And it just didn't get any better for him. And then the last thing I want to talk about is Hugh Freeze got fired at Auburn, right? We all know that story. And they immediately have their best offensive production of the season. They score 38 points. They end up losing to Vanderbilt in overtime. But have to be happy with just the direction. But their interim head coach is who? DJ Durkin himself. So,
bad guy.
They removed one alleged murderer
for another
Brian
one.
Kelly, and they just the SEC fundamentally had to find a murderer that can allegedly kill children to fill that role. They were like, nope, 1 week is too much of this. Let's get a murderer in there, guys. This is what we're known for. I'm saying all that in jest, obviously, guys. But it was a really impressive performance. 31 of 44 for Ashton Daniels, who was the Stanford transfer, 353 yards, 2 TDs. He also added 89, so over 400-yard performance and 2 TDs in this game. So really, really impressive stuff from Daniels to go against Vanderbilt. And I know Vanderbilt hasn't played well, but does this feel like an Auburn team who has a bye week and then Mercer might have something
Iron Bowl
stored in the back for a last weekend Iron Bowl showdown at home against Bama?
Jordan Hare, baby. It's weird.
It's weird. So everything, obviously the season hasn't gone the way that they expected. They lost basically every game that was expected out of them, and then you add Kentucky on top of that, and I think that's what gets you fired. But can they, not fix the season, but they can get to a bowl game. And if you hire a new coach in and you at least give him a bowl game to get his guys to work through some things, I think that's a huge impact this time of year. So if you can find a way to do that and get him down there by beating the last 2 teams on your schedule, which one is Mercer and the last one is Auburn or Alabama, I apologize. That would be an interesting one. Any games you want to talk about, Chris? I know we hit on a bunch of stuff, but it was a wild weekend of college football. I wish we were able to watch everything as easy, but ESPN and YouTube TV are still going at it.
No, I just want to shout out Cam Coleman, too. He's a dog, 10 for 143 and a good-ass touchdown for Auburn. I'm also watching the MAC a little bit. It's part of our fantasy, and the MAC is just fun. It's on Tuesdays. They're all beating up on each other. No one's really taking over. And I'm also doing a Miami of Ohio Dynasty, so I like to keep my finger on the pulse. But no, nothing else, KB. It was a low-key, pretty good weekend, and looking forward to breaking down. We're back. I was riding a high after everything on our athletics was good, on a bye week. So I was kind of riding that high. I got to say, KB, Penn State's hockey team was bought and paid for, and they got fucking swept. So we're unanimous, number 1 hockey, 50 votes. Every single vote goes toward Michigan State Spartans for hockey, big hockey school here, and obviously basketball, big win at home with a coach that got fired up, Tom Izzo, of course, against Arkansas. Calipari, first time ever, KB, playing at the Brez, and they played each other probably 10 to 15 times. That's insane. Just a fun little stat in college basketball. But no, KB, looking forward to breaking it down. One more tailgate in East Lansing, which is always a good time, and I can't believe it's almost out of the season's almost over, KB. Thanksgiving's a couple weeks away. Always a good time of the year. It snowed. KB was around when it got a little chilly, and we'll see what happens. But thank you guys as always. Rate and share. TikTok popped off a little bit. Some guy thinks Notre Dame's better than A&M. He's wrong because A&M beat them. Maybe they play again. That'd be fun, right? In the playoff.
Notre Dame, too. And I do think that Notre Dame has grown and CJ Carr looks better, but I hate the analytical world we're honestly living in, Quiz. It pisses me off sometimes. Like, I'm a numbers guy. I love all the advanced numbers, but, like, motherfucker, they beat you on your home turf.
It was a close game, all things considered. But, yeah, we'll see. Go green, baby.
Yeah, I mean, just to go on with that, I mean, that was the same thing of, like, when Michigan and Michigan State in 21, MSU ends up coming back and roaring back and beating them in a really, really close, fun game. Then they get curb stomped by Ohio State. A week later, Michigan wins, and then Michigan's one ahead of them in the polls, even though they played 2 weeks ago and lost. Like, that's the shit that pisses me off. But just to go on your point, Quist, yeah, Miami of Ohio and Ohio are at the top of the conference, both 4-1 in league play, 6-3 and 5-4 overall. Then Buffalo and Western Michigan are also 4-1. They're both 5-4. There are 5-4 teams in the MAC this year, which is really, really fun. No one's really risen in that conference, and I think that's maybe one of the issues. Obviously, the MAC. There isn't as much homegrown talent that they can kind of scrape away, but they usually get some athletes from the South that are getting overlooked by the big teams there. But all things considered, there isn't like a MAC team that pops off that like goes 11-1 like we see in some of these other conferences. And I don't know the reason why, if it's maybe style of play or maybe scheduling when they go to that weird Tuesday rotation.
They also play a lot of hard non-conference games in the MAC too.
They do. They do schedule pretty tough. Usually, Michigan State both have a directional school that they play every year. One usually plays Notre Dame, I believe, more often than not. So I agree, but it's just one of those things where no one really rises to the top as much as you'd maybe expect as one of these other leagues, because it's pretty firmly Mountain West, American, and then like Sunbelt MAC. But even I think Sunbelt, I feel like stands a better chance than the MAC. But it's just one of those weird things where maybe it's style of play, so everyone beats up on each other. But with that being said, I appreciate everyone for listening. Continue to check out the pod. We're getting to the end of the season. Any ideas on off-season stuff is always welcome and accepted, no matter how goofy it is. If you want me and Quist to play a football classic trivia or see what questions we know, I don't care. I'm down for basically anything. Maybe that'd be a fun episode
Jeopardy.
if we could screen and record Jeopardy of like football. I don't know, but thank you guys as always. As we wrap up this episode, we will see you pretty quick turnaround, obviously, with the late recording this week. So with all that being said, go Blue.